My name is Diara Towns.
I'm Lakshmi Sivadas, and the two of us created the RockawayProject.org.
So, before social journalism, I was a scientist. I used innovative education techniques to communicate marine science topics to aquarium audiences.
Before joining this program, I used to be a reporter and producer back in India, where I used to cover urban environmental and real estate issues.
So last December, I began covering the New York City climate activist community. This is where I met Patrick Houston, a climate organizer with New York Communities for Change, and worked with the staff of We Act for Environmental Justice, uncovering issues that underserved communities faced when it came to the climate issue. Together, we began covering the youth climate movement, which is how our community engagement work began to overlap.
So earlier this year, I was covering the Williams frack gas pipeline protest. The Williams frack gas pipeline is a 23-mile-long pipeline that's set to run from Pennsylvania to New Jersey and end in New York, right off the coast of the Rockaways. A group of protesters had gathered outside Governor Andrew Cuomo's office and City Hall to protest this pipeline and put a stop to it. Among them were residents of the Rockaways. I got talking to them to find out why stopping this pipeline was so important to them. All of their stories shared one single theme: Hurricane Sandy. It was clear that for this community, the trauma from Hurricane Sandy was far from over.
I think we could have received more help. We were ignored. Where I lived, everybody pretty much took care of themselves. We didn't wait on different organizations to come by. Not to say that I know what it feels like to be a refugee, but my goodness.
The emotional burden of your whole community getting massacred it's really heavy, and I don't really think you ever recover from it. Like, you're really, you feel it like all the time.
You look at other communities that got affected by Sandy. You have some areas in Rockaway. If I was to take you in my car right now and drive you by it, you would think Sandy just hit here yesterday. It looks desolate. It looks like Sandy hit. They have buildings that still need to be torn down. They have buildings that got affected by Sandy that haven't been touched. Do you not see the negative effect that can have, like the mental psyche that plays on someone who lives across the street? To have to look at that abandoned, burned down building, Sandy damaged building every day.
So it's been 7 years since Sandy struck, but projects meant to protect the peninsula, called climate resiliency projects, are still incomplete. People are still waiting for their homes to be repaired by Build It Back, and the peninsula is unprepared for the next storm. Every year since Sandy, newsrooms revisit this topic around the anniversary of the storm. But a lack of consistent follow-up has meant that important issues that the residents want covered go unnoticed, like holding Build It Back contractors accountable, or asking why one side of the peninsula seems to have better climate resiliency features than the other side. A lot of funding has gone into recovery efforts here, but none of it has been tracked. In short, there's a lack of transparency and accountability from government-led recovery efforts in the Rockaways.
So we felt that the best way that we could have the greatest impact on a climate-affected community was by joining our efforts. So we teamed up. We both live in Uptown Manhattan near the George Washington Bridge, and this is us here at the J School in Midtown. For reference, this is the JFK Airport in Queens, and further south is the Rockaway Peninsula. It's bordered by the Jamaica Bay to the north and the Atlantic Ocean to the south. What we committed to doing was traveling to the Rockaways as often as we could. We went 4 times a month since July. We wanted to build trust and show our commitment to this community that really hasn't seen the tangible benefits of speaking with reporters in the past. We met with local organizers as we were taught in our community engagement course in our first semester. We met with Wanda Warren of Community Board 14, Jeremy Jones of the Rockaway Beach Civic Association, and Lisa George from the State Senator James Sanders' office. We wanted to gather as much ethnographic research as we could so we could make sure that we were asking the right questions. We took our survey information to the Rockaway Library and asked people for their feedback on what their experiences were like during Sandy.
In total, we reached 52 residents, 47 in person and 5 online. 45 of them shared their phone numbers with us, 38 shared an email, and 35 of them were willing to share their post-Sandy experience. 28 of these people were homeowners and 7 of them were renters. In total, since July, we have formally interviewed over 15 residents about their experience. After engaging with this community, we now have a more comprehensive picture of what the issues are on ground for these people. It's different for the east and the west side of the peninsula. The west side, which comprises of Rockaway Beach, Bell Harbor, and Breezy Point, is 78% white. Help after Sandy reached here faster, but they still struggle with climate resiliency issues. The east side comprises of Edgemere, Arverne, and Far Rockaway. This area is 67% Hispanic or Black. Not only did help reach here a whole 2 weeks after it reached the other parts of the peninsula, people are still waiting for recovery and rebuilding efforts to fully take off. People are still waiting for their homes to be rebuilt with Build It Back, as you can see from these pictures, which we took in the last 6 months. From our research, we've also found that there are over 60 climate resiliency projects which are either incomplete or are in a study phase on the peninsula. Funding for many of these projects have been reallocated by the mayor's office. When we spoke to them, they said that this was done for cost savings to invest in other projects. So, 7 years after Sandy, the city is still failing the residents of the Rockaways.
This is why we've launched the rockawayproject.org. It is a website that centralizes recovery and resiliency information from the city, state, and federal level. We have let me start over. We have a community forum that allows residents to post pictures about their home repairs, as well as track the resiliency neighborhood issues that they experience every day. We have shared the audio stories that we've collected from the individuals that we've interviewed thus far. And given this website, newsrooms will now have access to this data, allowing them to report on these issues that they may not have been able to report on previously, given the amount of time that's needed to be present in these communities. So, after speaking with the Office of Emergency Management, we collected storm preparedness information specific to the Rockaways. We plugged this information into an automated communication platform called Dexter, which we learned about in our design and development class this semester. This will allow residents who are at home, at the library, or on the A-Line platform to be able to have a more conversational storm preparedness experience, unlike what the city is offering at the moment. Because what we've learned from our conversation with the city, the main directive when a hurricane is approaching for the peninsula is evacuation. An expensive and not always feasible action for a lot of residents who live in these lower income areas. Additionally, what we learned once we took this website to the Rockaway Library to gather direct feedback on it was that many people stay put during an evacuation. And they do this because they don't feel like the threat is going to be as serious, which was the case after Hurricane Sandy, and then experienced after Hurricane Irene, and then experienced after Hurricane Sandy. So once we gathered this feedback and we went to the library, the overwhelming response was that people would use our website. People were excited to have an opportunity to share what their direct experiences have been since Sandy struck. And we also shared a lot of this information on our Medium pages so people can see the process that we committed to over time.
We still have future engagement opportunities on the peninsula. We are yet to engage with people living in shelters, non-English speaking residents, people living in nursing homes, NYCHA residents, and we still haven't engaged with the Jewish or the Hispanic communities out there. In terms of challenges for a project this size, it was definitely difficult gaining the trust and confidence of a community that's been burnt by media so many times. It definitely takes time and consistency. In terms of long-term success for us, for this project, it would be in being able to replicate this model with other weather disasters in other regions, mainly because billions of dollars go into disaster recovery operations, but none of it is ever tracked. And that problem is not unique to the Rockaways. In terms of the future of this project, we are looking at making the storm preparedness information available offline for people who don't have access to the internet. We're also looking at collaborating with local newsrooms and community organizations to see who can continue this work. Journalistically, we also have 2 investigative stories that we're working on right now that would definitely not have been possible without all the listening, all of this engagement, and all of this engagement reporting.
Correct. So what we learned over the course of the social journalism program was that this work does take time. It requires you to be consistently present in the community. We learned that by leveraging the connections in the community that were already present, we were able to listen in and engage further. And then we also harnessed the power of individual action, such as Pastor David Cockfield. He empowered his congregation to voice their frustration about the delays in the city's response by holding a press conference and forming his own action movement. It's important that we pay attention to what's happening in the Rockaways. Climate change has resulted in a foot rise in the sea level in this area and will leave 2 more feet of sea level rise in the next 30 years. As more cities are impacted by climate, it's going to change from climate. Let me try that again. It's important that we pay attention to what's happening in the Rockaways because climate change will result in stronger storms. Stronger than Katrina, stronger than Sandy, Maria, and Dorian. More cities will be affected, if not devastated. Climate injustice and climate gentrification will become the norm. It will not be an anomaly. And we know that as journalists work to continue reporting on climate change, how they track recovery and resiliency issues will be critical in the age of climate change. Thank you, guys.